Hey guys, tonight we slip into the perfumed halls of ancient Susa, where a Jewish orphan named Esther is about to become a Persian queen. Picture yourself in a palace glowing with torchlight, silk curtains swaying in the desert breeze. You're brushing past courtiers in jewel-crusted robes, their whispers buzzing like cicadas. Somewhere in this maze of marble and ambition, a young woman hides her faith, her courage coiled tight, ready to unravel a story that'll echo for centuries. Fair warning, navigating a king's ego and a villain's schemes is trickier than dodging your aunt's fruitcake at Passover. You probably won't survive this unscathed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Relax, let the world fade, and focus on the shimmering court ahead. Now, dim the lights, close your eyes, and imagine. And let's begin today's journey together. You're standing in Susa, the heart of the Persian Empire. Around 483 BCE, the air smells of myrrh and roasted lamb, and the city hums with traders from India to Ethiopia. King Xerxes, or Ahasuerus if you're feeling fancy, rules this sprawling empire. He's the kind of guy who'd throw a 6-month party just to flex his wealth. Think gold goblets, peacocks strutting through courtyards, and enough wine to drown a camel. You're weaving through the palace's outer gates, where guards in lion-emblazoned armor eye you like you forgot the dress code. The vibe is opulent but tense, like everyone's waiting for the king's next mood swing. Esther, our star, isn't in the spotlight yet. She's a Jewish girl, raised by her cousin Mordecai after her parents died. You're picturing her in a modest home on Susa's edge, not far from the Jewish quarter. She's probably kneading dough or mending a cloak, her dark eyes sharp with quiet strength. Mordecai, a scribe with a knack for eavesdropping at the king's gate, keeps her grounded. He's all Esther. Don't tell anyone you're Jewish. Persians can be weird about foreigners. She nods, but you can tell she's got a spark that'll outshine the palace chandeliers. Now, let's talk about a strange event in the Bible, Xerxes' epic bash. The book of Esther says he hosted a 180-day feast for his nobles, showing off his empire's riches. Imagine you're there, dodging drunken satraps and tripping over ivory-inlaid tables. The text doesn't mention God outright, which is quirky for a Bible story. Scholars still debate if it's a deliberate nod to divine subtlety or just a stylistic flex. Either way, this party sets the stage for drama. Xerxes is about to make a decision that'll flip Esther's life upside down. Here's a quirky tidbit. Persian kings loved their banquets, but they also had a thing for bizarre punishments. One king, not Xerxes, but close enough, once ordered a guy's nose cut off for sneezing during a feast. You're lucky you didn't RSVP to that one. Xerxes' court is less gruesome, but no less chaotic. As you slip through the crowd, you hear whispers about Queen Vashti, the current queen, who's hosting her own ladies-only party. She's fierce, beautiful, and about to stir up trouble that'll land Esther in the royal hot seat, disciples still argue whether Vashti was a feminist icon or just stubborn. Some say she refused Xerxes' summons to protect her dignity. Others think she was playing power games. Whatever her deal, her defiance is the spark that lights Esther's path. You're feeling the palace pulse quicken, servants scurry, nobles gossip, and you're wondering how a Jewish orphan will navigate this glittering snake pit for now. Esther's still in the shadows, but you can sense her courage simmering, ready to step into a story that's equal parts faith and finesse. You're brushing against a tapestry of a lion hunt, its threads glinting in the lamplight. The feast is in full swing, and you're catching snippets of Old Persian, Greek, and Aramaic. A servant offers you a fig stuffed with honey tempting, but you're too busy watching the court's chessboard. Esther's not even a pawn yet, but the game's about to start. You're hooked, aren't you? Good. Let's keep walking toward the throne room, where Xerxes is about to make a move that'll change everything. You're still in Susa's palace, the air thick with the scent of saffron and ambition. The clink of gold goblets echoes as King Xerxes' 180-day feast hits its peak. You're weaving through a sea of nobles, their beards oiled, their tunics shimmering like they raided a peacock's closet. Servants dart past, balancing trays of pomegranates and spiced lamb. You're trying not to trip over a stray sandal while keeping an eye on the throne, where Xerxes lounges, his crown slightly askew. The guy's got the charisma of a lion and the impulse control of a toddler with a sugar rush. You're sensing the party's about to take a wild turn, and Queen Vashti's name is on everyone's lips. Picture the scene: Xerxes, 7 days into a bonus banquet for his inner circle, is feeling extra. He's showing off his wealth like it's an Olympic sport, think marble floors, so polished you can see your reflection, and curtains embroidered with enough gold to bankrupt a small nation. You're sipping watered-down wine because you're pacing yourself, unlike these nobles. And you overhear a courtier mutter about Vashti's parallel party for the women. She's holding court in her own pavilion, all silk veils and jasmine-scented air. You're thinking, good for her, keeping the boys' club at bay. But Xerxes has other plans. Here's the strange event in the Bible: Xerxes, deep in his cups, orders Vashti to parade before his guests, wearing her royal crown. The text is coy. Some say he meant just the crown, which, yikes. You're raising an eyebrow, aren't you? The book of Esther doesn't spell it out, but the implication's clear. He wants to flaunt her beauty like a trophy. Vashti, though, isn't having it. She flat out refuses, which is like tossing a lit torch into a pile of dry palm fronds. The nobles gasp. You nearly choke on a fig, and Xerxes' face turns the color of his purple robe. Let's toss in a quirky tidbit. Persian queens weren't just arm candy. They owned estates, managed trade routes, and sometimes outsmarted their husbands. Vashti's defiance wasn't just a mood, she was flexing real influence. You're picturing her, tall and unyielding, telling the king's eunuch, "Tell His Majesty I'm busy." Bold move, but you're secretly cheering. The court, though, is a boys' club, and the nobles are clutching their pearls, worried their wives might get ideas. You can almost hear them whisper, "What's next?" Women choosing their own tunics. Disciples still argue whether Vashti's refusal was principled or prideful. Some rabbis paint her as a hero standing against objectification. Others say she was a spoiled aristocrat, picking a dumb hill to die on. You're leaning toward the former, but the text leaves it open, like a cliffhanger in a Persian soap opera. Either way, her no is a seismic shift. Xerxes, humiliated in front of his drinking buddies, consults his advisors, these guys, led by a sycophant named Memucan, aren't exactly Team Vashti. They convince Xerxes to banish her, arguing her defiance could spark a empire-wide wifely rebellion. You're rolling your eyes, typical overreaction. You're standing by a bronze brazier, its flames casting shadows on the wall. The decree goes out. Vashti's out. Her crown's up for grabs. Servants scurry to enforce the king's order. And you're wondering how this power vacuum will play out. Across town, Esther's probably braiding her hair, unaware she's about to be swept into this drama. You're catching whispers of a beauty contest to replace Vashti, and the court's already buzzing with speculation. Will it be a Median noble's daughter? A Greek merchant's kid? You're betting on the underdog, but you'll have to wait. The banquet's winding down, but the tension's just starting. You're brushing past a guard who's muttering about uppity queens. The palace feels like a chessboard, and Vashti's just been knocked off. You're itching to know who'll step up next, but for now, you're stuck in the afterglow of this royal fiasco. Xerxes slumps on his throne, probably regretting that extra goblet of wine. You're thinking, buddy, you ain't seen nothing yet. Let's keep moving through the crowd, toward the next twist in this glittering, treacherous court. You're still in Susa's palace, the banquet's echoes fading like a distant lute. The air's heavy with incense and the sting of Vashti's banishment. You're slinking past courtiers, their gold bangles clinking as they whisper about the empty queen's throne. Xerxes, sprawled on his lion-carved seat, looks like a man who just lost a bet with his own ego. You're dodging a servant balancing a tray of rosewater-soaked dates, your sandals scuffing the polished floor. The court's a simmering pot of ambition, and you're sensing the next ingredients about to be tossed in Esther's waiting in the wings. But the stage isn't set for her yet. Vashti's gone, her defiance a fading ripple. You're picturing her, maybe escorted out through a side gate, her chin high despite the exile. The nobles are rattled, muttering about proper order, while their wives, you bet, are quietly toasting Vashti's nerve. Xerxes' advisors, those bearded busybodies, aren't wasting time. They're already pitching a plan to fill the queen's vacancy. Think less romantic courtship and more empire-wide talent show. You're chuckling at the thought of Xerxes swiping left or right on a parade of hopefuls. But this is Persia, so it's less tender, more royal decree. Here's the strange event in the Bible. The king's team organizes a beauty contest to find a new queen. The book of Esther says they rounded up beautiful young virgins from every province, which sounds like a logistical nightmare. You're imagining couriers on horseback, scouring from Babylon to Bactria, delivering summons to wide-eyed girls. It's not exactly empowering, more like a cattle call with higher stakes. You're wincing, but you're also curious. How does a Jewish orphan like Esther end up in this glittering meat market? Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian royal women went through intense prep for court life. Think spa days on steroids, 6 months of myrrh oil massages, 6 more of perfumes and cosmetics. You're picturing a gaggle of girls slathered in goop, gossiping about Xerxes' temper. It's like a reality show, but with worse lighting and no confessional booth. You're wondering if they had to practice curtsying while smelling like a spice bazaar. Esther's in this mix soon, but for now, you're watching the palace gears grind, setting up the contest. Disciples still argue whether this beauty pageant was degrading or a clever way for women to gain influence. Some say it objectified the candidates. Others argue it gave outsiders like Esther a shot at power. You're leaning toward a bit of both, but the text doesn't judge. It just lays out the facts like a Persian rug, intricate and open to interpretation. The decree's out. Every province must send its best, and the king will pick his queen. You're thinking, Xerxes, you're in for a surprise. You're lingering near a courtyard fountain, its splash mingling with the hum of court gossip. The advisors are smug, patting themselves on the back for their genius plan. You overhear one mention Haggai, the king's eunuch, who's basically the pageant director. He's got a knack for spotting diamonds in the rough, and you're betting he'll notice Esther when she arrives. For now, the palace is abuzz with preparations. Silks are dyed, harps are tuned, and you're dodging a pile of peacock feathers someone left on the floor. Typical. Across town, Esther's probably helping Mordecai with chores, oblivious to the royal summons heading her way. You're picturing her, maybe humming a psalm, her hands dusted with flour. She's not dreaming of crowns, she's just trying to survive in a city where being Jewish means keeping your head down. You're feeling the weight of her world, a mix of faith and caution, like walking a tightrope over a lion pit. The contest's about to pull her in, and you're itching to see how she navigates it. You're brushing against a pillar carved with griffins, the torchlight flickering on your face. The court's settling into a new rhythm, but you know it's the calm before the storm. Xerxes is probably nursing a hangover, unaware that his next queen will shake his empire. You're smirking. Oh, the irony. Let's keep moving. Past the guards and toward the women's quarters, where the real drama's about to start. You're drifting through Susa's bustling streets, leaving the palace's golden glow behind. The city pulses with life merchants hawk sesame cakes. Camels snort under spice-laden packs, and kids chase stray dogs through alleys. You're heading toward the Jewish quarter, where Esther lives, her world a far cry from Xerxes' marble halls. The air smells of fresh bread and dust, and you're brushing past neighbors chatting in Aramaic. Esther's story is about to collide with the king's, but right now, she's just Hadassah, a young woman with no clue her life's about to flip like a poorly baked flatbread. Picture her home, a modest mud brick house, its courtyard shaded by a gnarled fig tree. You're peeking through the gate, seeing Esther sweep the floor, her dark hair tied back. She's maybe 16, her hands quick, but her eyes thoughtful, like she's carrying secrets she hasn't named yet. Mordecai, her cousin and guardian, sits nearby, scribbling on a scroll. He's got the vibe of a guy who knows too much. Think grizzled professor meets nosy uncle. You're catching their quiet rhythm. He teaches her Torah. She keeps the house running. It's cozy, but you're sensing the tension of living as Jews in a Persian melting pot. Here's the strange event in the Bible: Esther's dual identity. The book of Esther says her Hebrew name is Hadassah, meaning myrtle, but she goes by Esther, possibly a nod to the Persian goddess Ishtar. You're raising an eyebrow, adopting a pagan name to blend in. That's a bold move for a Jewish girl. Mordecai's all. Keep your heritage on the down low. And you're wondering how she balances faith with this cultural tightrope. It's like code switching, but with higher stakes than forgetting your lines at a school play. Let's toss in a quirky tidbit. Jewish life in Susa wasn't all gloom. Exiled Jews ran businesses, joined guilds, and even threw epic Purim parties. More on that later. You're picturing Esther at a neighbor's Sabbath meal, maybe sneaking an extra piece of challah. She's not a rebel, but she's got a spark. Like she could charm a tax collector into lowering her bill. You're smirking at the thought of her haggling over figs while Mordecai mutters about prophecy. Disciples still argue whether Esther's secrecy was strategic or a compromise of faith. Some say she hid her Jewishness to survive. Others think it was a divine setup, like God was playing 4D chess. You're leaning toward survival. She's a teenager in a foreign empire, not a theologian writing a manifesto. The text doesn't judge her. It just shows her navigating a world where one wrong word could land her in a dungeon. You're feeling her caution, like you're tiptoeing through a lion's den yourself. You're lingering by her gate, hearing a distant shofar from the synagogue. The royal summons hasn't reached her yet, but you know it's coming across town. Haggai's team is scouting girls for Xerxes' beauty contest. Their clipboards practically smoking from all the names. You're imagining the chaos, parents primping their daughters, tailors stitching last-minute gowns. Esther's not on their radar, but Mordecai's gate-sitting habit means he's got the pulse of the city. You're betting he'll hear about the contest before the couriers knock. The sun's dipping low, painting the sky like a spilled jar of saffron. You're brushing dust off your tunic, catching Esther's laugh as she teases Mordecai about his messy beard. It's a fleeting moment of normalcy, and you're savoring it, knowing the palace will soon yank her into its orbit. You're wondering how she'll handle the spotlight. Will she crumble or shine? Spoiler, she's tougher than she looks. But you're not there yet, for now. You're rooted in her world, where faith and fear dance like shadows on the wall. You're stepping back into the street, dodging a cart of melons. The city's winding down, but you're buzzing with anticipation. Esther's life is a quiet melody, about to hit a crescendo. You're thinking, girl, you have no idea what's coming. Let's keep walking, back toward the palace, where the beauty contest's gears are grinding, ready to pull her in. You're back in Susa, the city's evening hum wrapping around you like a warm shawl. The palace looms in the distance, its torches flickering like stars trapped in stone. You're weaving through the market, past stalls shuddering for the night, the scent of cumin and dung mingling in the air. The royal beauty contest is kicking into gear, and you're sensing the buzz like a beehive poked with a stick. Every family with a pretty daughter is whispering about Xerxes' search for a new queen. You're picturing mothers braiding hair, fathers praying for a royal dowry, and girls wondering if they'll trade their village for a crown. Esther's about to get swept into this whirlwind, and you're right there, sandals scuffing the dirt, watching it unfold. The king's men, led by Haggai the eunuch, are scouring the empire. You're imagining them, all clipped beards and stern scrolls, knocking on doors from Susa to Sardis. The decree's clear. Every province sends its best girls. No exceptions. You're dodging a camel cart, overhearing a merchant grumble about his niece being summoned. The vibe's half excitement, half dread, like signing up for a talent show where the prize is a throne and the loser's obscurity. Esther's name isn't on the list yet, but you're betting Mordecai's ears are perked, catching every rumor at the king's gate. Here's the strange event in the Bible, the sheer scale of this contest. The book of Esther says girls were gathered from every province of Xerxes' empire, which stretched from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces. Per the text, you're doing the math that's hundreds, maybe thousands, of candidates. It's like a Persian version of a reality show, but with chariots instead of limos. You're chuckling, picturing Haggai with a clipboard, muttering. Next is girls curtsy in a never-ending line. Esther's about to join the circus, and you're wondering how she'll stand out. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian beauty prep was no joke. Candidates spent a year in the women's quarters, 6 months soaked in myrrh oil, 6 more in perfumes and makeup. You're imagining Esther wincing as attendants slather her with goop that smells like a spice merchant's fever dream. It's less spa day, more endurance test. And you're joking she'd rather scrub floors than sit through another rosewater bath. But this regimen wasn't just vanity, it was a cultural flex, proving the empire could pamper its queens like goddesses. Disciples still argue whether this contest was empowering or exploitative. Some say it gave women like Esther a shot at influence. Others call it a glorified cattle market. With girls paraded for a king's whim, you're leaning toward the latter. But you see the nuance. Esther's about to turn this rigged game into a masterclass of grace. The text doesn't moralize, it just paints the scene, letting you decide. You're feeling the weight of her world, where beauty's a ticket, but faith's the compass. You're lingering near the Jewish quarter, catching a glimpse of Esther through her window. She's mending a cloak, her fingers nimble, unaware of the couriers heading her way. Mordecai's at the gate, as usual, chatting with traders. You're betting he's heard about the contest. His knack for gossip is sharper than a scribe's stylus. The summons will hit soon, and you're picturing Esther's face, part shock, part resolve. She's not chasing glory, but you're sensing she'll play the hand she's dealt. You're rooting for her, aren't you? The stars are peeking out, dusting Susa with silver. You're brushing past a baker stacking loaves, your mind on the palace's women's quarters. That's where Esther's headed, to a world of silk and scrutiny. You're joking she'll need a nap just to survive the perfume gauntlet. For now, she's still Hadassah, her life small but steady. You're feeling the tension, like a lute string about to snap. The contest's a machine, and she's a cog it doesn't expect. Let's keep moving toward the palace, where Haggai's waiting to meet the girl who'll change everything. You're slipping back into Susa's palace, its corridors alive with the rustle of silk and the clatter of silver trays. The beauty contest is in full swing, and you're weaving through the women's quarters, where the air's thick with myrrh and nervous giggles. Picture a sprawling complex, think less royal spa, more bustling dorm for anxious debutantes. Girls from every corner of the empire, from Parthia to Kush, are here, their accents blending into a hum of hope and fear. You're dodging an attendant carrying a jar of rose water, your eyes scanning for Esther. She's just arrived, and you're feeling the shift, like a new melody threading through a familiar song. Esther's been plucked from her quiet life in the Jewish quarter, and you're imagining her first steps into this perfumed chaos. She's clutching a small bundle, maybe a shawl. A few keepsakes, her dark eyes wide but steady. Haggai, the king's eunuch and pageant master, spots her right away. The guy's got a knack for reading people, like a merchant sizing up a rug's weave. You're picturing him, all clipped beard and sharp gaze, noting Esther's poise. She's not flaunting it, but there's something about her, a quiet spark that cuts through the room's clamor. You're smirking, thinking she's the underdog who's about to steal the show. Here's the strange event in the Bible. Esther wins Haggai's favor instantly. The book of Esther says he gave her the best spot in the women's quarters, extra attendance, and premium beauty treatments. You're raising an eyebrow, nepotism or divine nudge. It's like she skipped the line at a Persian DMV. The text doesn't say why Hagai's smitten, but you're betting it's her blend of grace and grit, like she could charm a cobra while balancing a tray of figs. She's still hiding her Jewish identity, per Mordecai's advice, and you're sensing the tension of her secret. Let's toss in a quirky tidbit. Persian cosmetics were wild. Girls like Esther were slathered with concoctions like crushed beetle shells for lip color or lead-based powder. For that I'm not dead glow. You're joking. She probably sneezed through her first makeup session, muttering, "This is why I stick to flour dust." But these treatments were serious business. Beauty was power, and the empire spared no expense. You're picturing Esther enduring a myrrh oil massage, her thoughts drifting to Mordecai and her old life. Now, a world away. Disciples still argue whether Esther's charm was natural or strategic. Some say her favor with Haggai was pure charisma. Others think she played the game, knowing when to smile and when to listen. You're leaning toward a mix. She's smart enough to navigate this snake pit, but genuine enough to win hearts. The text keeps it vague, like a storyteller winking at you to fill in the blanks. You're feeling her isolation, surrounded by rivals, yet anchored by faith. Like a lone star in a crowded sky, you're lingering by a courtyard fountain, its splash mingling with the chatter of contestants. Esther's settling in, her attendants fussing over her hair like she's a doll. You're catching snippets of their gossip. Some girl from media tried to bribe Haggai with a goat, and it didn't end well. You're chuckling, but your focus is on Esther. She's polite, maybe a bit shy, but you're sensing steel beneath her soft words. She's not here to make friends, but she's not making enemies either. Smart move in a place where a wrong glance could spark a feud. Across town, Mordecai's pacing at the king's gate, probably chewing his nails. You're betting he's praying, asking God to keep Esther safe in this gilded cage. The contest's a marathon months of prep before anyone meets Xerxes, and you're wondering how she'll hold up. The other girls are sizing each other up, their laughter sharp as knives. You're joking Esther's the only one who'd rather nap than gossip, for now. She's a face in the crowd, but Haggai's favor is a spotlight, and you're itching to see how she'll shine. You're brushing past a tapestry of a stag hunt, its threads glinting in the lamplight. The women's quarters feel like a pressure cooker, and Esther's just starting to feel the heat. You're thinking, girl, you've got this, but it's going to be a wild ride. Let's keep moving, deeper into this perfumed labyrinth, where Esther's charm is about to face its first real test. You're still in the women's quarters of Susa's palace, where the air hums with the scent of jasmine and the rustle of nervous ambition. The beauty contest is a slow grind, and you're weaving through a maze of silk-draped rooms, catching glimpses of girls practicing their curtsies or whispering about Xerxes' temper. Esther's settled in, her spot in Haggai's favor, giving her a slight edge, like a head start in a chariot race. You're brushing past an attendant carrying a tray of pistachios, your eyes on Esther as she navigates this perfumed pressure cooker. She's keeping her Jewish identity under wraps, and you're sensing the weight of that secret, like a stone tucked in her sleeve. Outside the palace, Mordecai's glued to the king's gate, his scribes, stylists idle as he listens for news. You're picturing him, all furrowed brow and dusty cloak, blending into the crowd of merchants and guards. The gate's a hub of gossip, think ancient Persian Twitter. But with more camels, you're imagining him catching snippets about the contest, his heart probably doing flips every time Esther's name floats by. He's not just her cousin, he's her anchor, and you're betting he's praying harder than a priest during a drought. But today, he's about to stumble into something bigger than palace rumors. Here's the strange event in the Bible. Mordecai uncovers a plot to assassinate Xerxes. The book of Esther says 2 eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, were angry and planned to kill the king. You're raising an eyebrow, eunuchs plotting a coup. That's like the palace chefs staging a sit-in over bad lentils. Mordecai overhears their scheme, maybe catching a heated whisper while loitering at the gate. He tips off Esther, who passes it to Xerxes, and the plot's foiled. The text says the eunuchs were hanged on a tree, which you're hoping is a polite way of saying swift justice. You're wincing, but you're impressed by Mordecai's sharp ears. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian gates weren't just entrances. They were like open-air courthouses. People gossiped, traded, and settled disputes there, making it prime real estate for a snoop like Mordecai. You're joking. He probably knew the king's laundry schedule before the royal washer did. His gate-sitting isn't random. It's his way of keeping tabs on Esther and the empire's pulse. You're picturing him dodging a stray goat while scribbling notes, his eyes scanning for trouble like a hawk. Disciples still argue whether Mordecai's tip-off was luck or divine timing. Some say he was just in the right place. Others think God nudged him to hear the plot, setting up a chain reaction for Esther's rise. You're leaning toward a mix sharp instincts plus a cosmic wink. The text doesn't spell it out, keeping that tantalizing ambiguity, like a storyteller leaving you to connect the dots. You're feeling Mordecai's quiet heroism, a guy who's not chasing glory, but saving lives from the shadows. Back in the women's quarters, Esther's juggling her role as Haggai's favorite with the news from Mordecai. You're imagining her, maybe braiding her hair, processing the assassination plot while an attendant drones on about sandalwood oil. She's got to stay poised, charming, and secretive, all while relaying Mordecai's intel to the king. You're chuckling she's basically a spy in a spa, dodging gossip and myrrh fumes. Her message saves Xerxes, and the chronicle records Mordecai's name, though you're betting the king forgets it faster than a bad banquet. You're lingering by a mosaic of a lion, its glass tiles glinting in the torchlight. The other girls are oblivious, caught up in their beauty routines. But Esther's carrying the weight of her people's safety. You're sensing her strength, like a reed bending, but not breaking. The contest drags on, and she's still months from meeting Xerxes. You're joking she'd trade her silk cushions for a nap in her old courtyard. Mordecai's back at the gate, probably muttering about palace security. You're rooting for them both, aren't you? The night's settling over Susa, the palace glowing like a jewel against the dark. You're brushing past a guard who's yawning, his spear drooping. The plot's been squashed, but you know bigger storms are brewing. Esther's charm is her shield, Mordecai's vigilance her sword. You're thinking, this duo's about to shake the empire. Let's keep moving, deeper into the women's quarters, where Esther's quiet courage is starting to ripple. You're still deep in Susa's palace. The women's quarters a swirl of silk and whispered rivalries. The beauty contest hums along, and you're slipping past girls fussing with coal-lined eyes, their nervous laughter bouncing off marble walls. Esther's holding her own, her grace like a steady flame in this perfumed chaos. You're brushing against a curtain embroidered with pomegranates, catching the scent of myrrh that's starting to feel like overkill. Esther's secret, her Jewish identity, sits heavy, but she's playing her part, charming Haggai and dodging drama. You're sensing she's a step ahead, like a chess player eyeing the board while everyone else is flipping coins. Outside, Mordecai's still haunting the king's gate, his ears tuned to the empire's pulse. The assassination plot he foiled is old news, buried in the royal chronicles like last week's banquet leftovers. You're picturing him, cloak dusted with gate dirt, scribbling notes while traders barter nearby. But the palace isn't done churning out trouble. A new player's stepping onto the stage, and you're feeling the air shift, like a desert wind before a storm. His name's Haman, and he's about to make Mordecai's life and Esther's way more complicated. Here's the strange event in the Bible, Haman's meteoric rise to power. The book of Esther says Xerxes promotes this guy to prime minister, making him the king's right-hand man. You're squinting Haman, an Agastgite, climbs from obscurity to outrank every noble. It's like a random intern becoming CEO overnight. The text says everyone at court bows to him, except Mordecai, who refuses, citing his Jewish faith. You're picturing the gate, Haman strutting past in a gaudy robe, expecting kowtows, and Mordecai just standing there, arms crossed, like, nah, I bow to God. The tension's thicker than a badly mixed batch of hummus. Let's toss in a quirky tidbit. Persian court protocol was intense. Bowing to high officials wasn't just polite, it was law. And skipping it could land you in a dungeon, or worse. You're joking Mordecai's basically pulling a talk to the hand in front of the empire's second most powerful guy. Haman's ego, puffed up like a peacock's tail, can't handle the slight. You're imagining him fuming, his attendants whispering, sir, that Jewish guy's still standing. It's a power clash, and you're betting Haman's not the type to let it slide. Disciples still argue whether Mordecai's refusal was principled or reckless. Some say he was honoring God's command against idolatry. Others think he was poking the bear, risking his people for pride. You're leaning toward Principal Mordecai's not a hothead, but he's got a spine of iron. The text doesn't explain his reasoning, leaving you to chew on it, like a spicy olive you can't quite place. You're feeling the stakes. One man's defiance is about to spark a vendetta that'll shake the empire. You're back in the women's quarters, where Esther's oblivious to the gate drama. She's enduring another round of beauty prep, think cinnamon-scented oils and attendants braiding her hair into submission. You're chuckling, imagining her muttering, "Can I just wash this off and go home?" She's still months from meeting Xerxes, but her poise is winning allies. Haggai slips her extra dates, and you're betting the other girls are side-eyeing her like she cut the line at a Persian bakery. Her secret's safe, but you're sensing the clock ticking. At the gate, Haman's rage is brewing. You're picturing him, all slick mustache and glittering rings, plotting revenge. He's not just mad at Mordecai, he's got a grudge against all Jews, which is like hating an entire orchard because one apple fell on your head. You're wincing at his logic, but you know where this is going. Mordecai's still praying, probably, his faith a quiet shield. You're rooting for him. But you're nervous Haman's the kind of guy who'd poison your chai just for looking at him funny. You're lingering by a bronze lamp, its flame dancing on the wall. The palace feels like a tightening knot, with Esther inside and Mordecai outside, both caught in a web they can't see yet. You're thinking, this is about to get messy. Let's keep moving, back toward the women's quarters, where Esther's charm is her only weapon, and Haman's shadow is starting to loom. You're back in the heart of Susa's palace, where the women's quarters buzz like a hive of over-perfumed bees. The beauty contest drags on, and you're slipping through a corridor lined with alabaster vases, the air heavy with frankincense and whispered grudges. Esther's still navigating this gilded cage, her every smile a calculated step in a game she didn't choose. You're brushing past a girl, practicing her harp, her notes sour as her mood, and you're catching Esther's eye calm, but sharp, like she's reading the room while everyone else is just posing. Her Jewish secrets still locked tight, but outside, Mordecai's defiance has lit a fuse, and you're feeling the spark about to ignite. Haman, the king's shiny new prime minister, is strutting through Susa like he owns the place. You're picturing him at the king's gate, his robe dripping with gold thread, expecting bows from everyone, including Mordecai. But Mordecai's still standing tall, his "I only bow to God" stance driving Haman up the wall. You're sensing the fallout, like a sandstorm brewing on the horizon. Haman's not just annoyed, he's unhinged, and his grudge against Mordecai is about to balloon into something way uglier. You're wincing, knowing Esther's caught in the crosshairs, even if she's still clueless in her myrrh-soaked bubble. Here's the strange event in the Bible: Haman's genocidal plot. The book of Esther says he convinces Xerxes to issue an edict to destroy, kill, and annihilate all Jews in the empire, from young to old, on a single day. You're blinking genocide over one guy not bowing. It's like burning down a city because someone dented your chariot. Haman casts lots or pur in Hebrew to pick the date. Landing on the 13th of Adar, nearly a year away, you're imagining him smirking, rolling dice like a villain in a bad Persian drama, sealing the fate of Esther's people. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Casting lots was a big deal in ancient Persia, like flipping a coin, but with cosmic vibes. People thought it tapped divine will. But you're joking, Haman probably rigged the dice to land on a day when his horoscope looked extra evil. The edicts written in Xerxes' name, sealed with his ring, and sent to every province. You're picturing couriers galloping off, scrolls tucked under their arms, spreading doom faster than gossip at a bazaar. It's chilling. And you're wondering how Esther's going to dodge this one. Disciples still argue whether Xerxes knew the full scope of Haman's plan. Some say he was clueless, just signing off on paperwork while daydreaming about wine. Others think he was complicit, happy to let Haman play bad cop. You're leaning toward clueless, but culpable Xerxes isn't evil, just lazy, like a king who'd rather nap than read the fine print. The text keeps it ambiguous, letting you stew on the morality of a king who'd greenlight a massacre without a second thought. You're feeling the dread creeping in, like a shadow over Susa. Back in the women's quarters, Esther still in beauty boot camp, her days a blur of oils and etiquette lessons. You're chuckling, imagining her dodging an attendant's attempt to dye her eyebrows with squid ink. Persian beauty trends were wild. She's got no clue about Haman's edict yet, but you're betting her gut's telling her something's off. Like when you smell rain before the clouds roll in. Hey guys, still slipping her extra perks, maybe a softer cushion or a sweeter date, and you're sensing the other girl's jealousy, sharp as a hairpin. At the king's gate, Mordecai's world is crumbling. You're picturing him, his scroll abandoned, hearing the edict read aloud, death for his people, his family, his Esther. He's probably tearing his cloak, a Jewish sign of grief, while passersby stare. You're joking. He'd give Haman a piece of his mind if he didn't have to keep Esther's secret. The palace looms, a glittering trap, and you're feeling the distance between Esther's silk-draped world and Mordecai's dusty despair. Something's got to give. You're lingering by a bronze brazier, its flames casting jittery shadows. The women's quarters feel like a bubble, but the edict's ripples are closing in. Esther's still a contestant, not a queen, and you're wondering how she'll bridge the gap. You're thinking, girl, you're about to need more than charm. Let's keep moving, deeper into this perfumed labyrinth, where Haman's plot is tightening the noose, and Esther's courage is about to be tested. You're lingering in the women's quarters of Susa's palace, where the air's a heady mix of lavender and simmering tension. The beauty contest trudges on, and you're slipping past girls fussing over their sandal straps. their giggles masking the cutthroat vibe. Esther's still a standout, her quiet poise like a cool breeze in this overheated drama. You're brushing against a tapestry of leaping gazelles, catching her stealing a moment to gaze out a window, maybe missing her old life, her Jewish secrets still safe. But outside, Haman's genocidal edict is spreading like wildfire, and you're feeling the ground shift under her feet across town. Mordecai's at the king's gate, his world upended. You're picturing him, cloak torn in grief, his face ashen as he processes Haman's decree death for every Jew in the empire, set for the 13th of Adar. The gate's buzzing merchants whisper, guards smirk, and you're betting Mordecai's fighting the urge to punch something. He's not just mourning, he's scheming, his faith in God a flickering torch in this storm. You're sensing he's about to pull Esther into the fight, and you're itching to see how she'll handle it, stuck in her perfumed bubble. Here's the strange event in the Bible, Mordecai's bold move to alert Esther. The book of Esther says he sends word through a eunuch, Hatak, urging her to plead with Xerxes for her people. You're blinking this guy's banking on a not-yet queen to sway a king who just okayed a genocide. It's like asking a barista to rewrite tax law. Mordecai's message is blunt. Don't think you'll escape in the palace. Who knows if you're here for such a time as this? You're feeling the weight of that line, like a cosmic gauntlet thrown at Esther's feet. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian messengers were hardcore. The empire's courier system, called the Royal Road, could relay messages across 1 to 700 miles in days. Using relay stations and fresh horses? You're joking. Hatak probably sprinted to Esther faster than you'd run for free baklava. He's dodging palace guards, slipping Mordecai's words to her like a secret recipe. The Jews are doomed unless you act. You're picturing Esther's face shock, then resolve, like she's just been handed a map to a maze she didn't know she was in. Disciples still argue whether Mordecai's challenge was faith-driven or desperate. Some say he trusted God's plan, seeing Esther as a divine pawn. Others think he was grasping at straws, hoping her charm could outwit Haman's hate. You're leaning toward faith Mordecai's not reckless, but he's betting on a bigger story. The text doesn't clarify, leaving you to ponder, like you're piecing together a mosaic with half the tiles missing. You're feeling Esther's pressure, caught between palace pampering and a death sentence for her people. You're back in the women's quarters, where Esther's processing Mordecai's message. You're imagining her, maybe twisting a bracelet, her mind racing while an attendant prattles about hairpins. She's not queen yet, just a contestant, but Mordecai's words hit like a thunderclap. You're chuckling, picturing her muttering, "Great, save a whole nation." No pressure, she's got to act. But approaching Xerxes uninvited could mean death. The other girls are clueless, gossiping about who'll catch the king's eye. And you're sensing Esther's isolation, like a lone fig tree in a vineyard. Outside, Mordecai's waiting for her reply, probably pacing like a nervous dad. You're betting he's praying. His psalm's a lifeline. The city's stirring Jews are mourning, fasting, weeping in sackcloth, and you're catching the distant wail of their grief. Haman's edict is a sword hanging over them, and Esther's their only shot. You're joking she'd rather face a room of cranky scribes than a king who banishes queens for less. But you know she's tougher than she looks, her courage brewing like a slow-simmered stew. You're lingering by a marble pillar, its cool surface grounding you. The women's quarters feel like a gilded trap, and Esther's at a crossroads. You're thinking, girl, this is your moment, but it's gonna hurt. The palace glitters, but Haman's shadow looms, and Mordecai's plea echoes. Let's keep moving, deeper into this tense labyrinth, where Esther's about to make a choice that'll ripple through history. You're still tucked in the women's quarters of Susa's palace, where the air's a swirl of rosewater and barely veiled rivalries. The beauty contest hums on, but Esther's world just tilted. You're slipping past a girl fussing with a bronze mirror, her kohl smudged from nerves, and you're zeroing in on Esther. She's clutching Mordecai's message, delivered by Hatak, her fingers trembling, but her eyes sharp, like a deer sensing a lion. Haman's edict death to all Jews looms like a storm cloud, and Mordecai's plea to confront Xerxes has landed like a brick in her lap. You're feeling her pulse quicken, stuck in this perfumed cage while her people face a slaughter. Picture her, maybe leaning against a cedarwood screen, her silk robe too heavy for the moment. She's not queen yet, just a contestant, and approaching Xerxes uninvited could get her killed faster than you'd burn a batch of flatbread. You're imagining her replaying Mordecai's words. For such a time as this, it's half pep talk, half divine dare, and you're betting she's wrestling with it, her faith tangled with fear. The other girls are prattling about tiaras, oblivious, and you're sensing her solitude, like she's a single star in a crowded night sky. Here's the strange event in the Bible. Esther calls for a fast. The book of Esther says she tells Mordecai to gather Susa's Jews for a 3-day fast, no food, no drink, while she and her maids do the same. You're blinking, fasting in a palace stocked with figs and wine. It's like skipping a buffet to pray in a penthouse. She's not storming the throne room yet. She's hitting pause, seeking God's strength before risking her neck. You're picturing her, head bowed, whispering psalms while her stomach growls. Her maids exchanging worried glances. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Fasting in ancient Jewish tradition wasn't just spiritual, it was a communal gut punch. A way to cry out to God when the stakes were dire. You're joking Esther's maids probably hid some dates under a cushion, just in case she fainted mid-prayer. But this fast is her first bold move, a quiet rebellion against Haman's edict. You're imagining Susa's Jewish quarter, families huddled in sackcloth, their hunger a shared plea for deliverance. It's raw, and you're feeling the weight of their hope pinned on a girl who's still dodging myrrh massages. Disciples still argue whether Esther's fast was a delay tactic or a power move. Some say she was stalling, scared to face Xerxes. Others think she was rallying divine backup, trusting God to tilt the odds. You're leaning toward power. She's not reckless, but she's strategic, like a general marshaling troops before a battle. The text doesn't spell out her motives, leaving you to chew on it. Like a pomegranate seed stuck in your teeth, you're sensing her resolve hardening, her fear giving way to something fiercer. You're lingering by a latticed window, catching a whiff of the city beyond smoke. Bread. Fear. Esther's maids are fasting too, their usual chatter replaced by tense silence. You're chuckling, picturing one sneaking a sip of water, then feeling guilty. Esther's focused, her prayers a lifeline to Mordecai and her people. Outside, he's rallying the Jews, probably hoarse from organizing. You're betting he's picturing her in the palace, a lone spark against Haman's darkness. The fast is their bridge, connecting her silk-draped world to their sackcloth reality. The palace feels like a holding pattern, the contest's glamour fading against the edict's shadow. You're imagining Esther pacing, her sandals soft on the marble, weighing her next move. Approaching Xerxes is a gamble. Court rules say uninvited guests risk execution unless the king extends his golden scepter. You're joking she'd rather negotiate with a cranky camel than roll those dice. But the fast is her anchor, and you're sensing she's ready to step into the fire. Haman's out there, gloating, unaware she's about to rewrite his script. You're brushing past a bronze lamp, its flame steady despite the tension. The women's quarters are a bubble, but Esther's breaking free, her courage a quiet roar. You're thinking, girl, you're about to make history. But first, survive the throne room. Let's keep moving toward the moment she trades silk for steel, ready to face a king and a killer. You're standing in the women's quarters of Susa's palace, where the air's thick with the ghost of rosewater and the weight of Esther's resolve. The 3-day fast she called is wrapping up, and you're picturing her, pale but steady, her silk robe swapped for something simpler, like she's shedding the contest's gloss. The other girls are still primping, oblivious to the storm brewing beyond their coal-lined world. You're brushing past a curtain of blue linen, catching Esther's quiet breath as she steels herself. Haman's edict hangs over her people like a noose, and Mordecai's plea for her to beg Xerxes for mercy has pushed her to the edge. You're feeling her heart race, knowing she's about to roll the dice with a king who's as predictable as a sandstorm. The palace is a glittering maze, and you're following Esther as she moves toward the inner court. Her maids trail, their whispers hushed, probably wondering if she's lost her mind. Approaching Xerxes uninvited is a death wish. Persian law says only the king's golden scepter can spare an intruder. You're imagining her smoothing her hair, not for vanity, but to steady her nerves, her lips moving in silent prayer. She's not queen yet, just a contestant with a secret and a mission. And you're rooting for her, even as your stomach knots. Here's the strange event in the Bible: Esther's daring approach to Xerxes. The book of Esther says she put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court. Facing the throne room where Xerxes sat, you're blinking she's risking execution to save her people, with no guarantee he'll even glance her way. It's like walking into a lion's den holding nothing but a prayer. You're picturing the scene guards in lion-emblazoned armor, their spears glinting, watching her like hawks. Xerxes, maybe nursing a goblet of wine, looks up, and you're holding your breath, waiting for his move. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian throne rooms were over the top. Xerxes' hall had columns of alabaster, gold inlaid floors, and curtains studded with pearls, basically. A flex of wealth that screamed, "I am untouchable." You're joking, Esther probably thought. Nice decor. But can you not kill me? Her courage isn't loud. It's a quiet defiance, like a reed standing firm in a flood. You're imagining her standing there, her heart pounding loud enough to drown out the court's murmurs. Her faith in God, her only shield. Disciples still argue whether Esther's approach was reckless or divinely timed. Some say she was gambling on Xerxes' mood, hoping her beauty would sway him. Others think God orchestrated the moment, softening the king's heart. You're leaning toward a mix. She's strategic but trusting, like a sailor, reading the wind while praying for calm seas. The text doesn't say what she's thinking, leaving you to feel the tension, like you're standing in her sandals, staring down a throne. You're lingering at the edge of the inner court, the marble cool under your feet. The guards' eyes are on Esther, their hands twitching near their swords. You're picturing Xerxes, his crown glinting, his face unreadable. The scepter's the key if he raises it. She lives, if not. You're wincing at the thought. Esther's not trembling, though you're betting her knees want to. You're chuckling, imagining her muttering, "Mordecai, you owe me big for this." Her people are fasting, praying, their hope pinned on this moment, and you're feeling the weight of a nation on her slim shoulders. Outside, Mordecai's probably a wreck, pacing the king's gate, his prayers a drumbeat. You're betting he's picturing her in that throne room, a lone figure against the empire's might. Susa's Jews are still in sackcloth. They're fast a desperate plea, and you're catching the distant echo of their grief. Haman's out there, smug, unaware that Esther's about to flip his script. You're joking he'd choke on his wine if he knew a Jewish girl was this close to the king. The palace feels like a held breath, and you're itching to see if Xerxes will spare her. You're brushing against a pillar carved with lotus flowers, the torchlight flickering on your face. The inner court's a threshold, and Esther's crossing it, her courage a quiet fire. You're thinking, girl, you're rewriting history. But first, Don't die. Let's keep moving. Into the throne room shadow, where a scepter's tilt will decide her fate and her people's. You're standing at the edge of Susa's throne room, the air charged with the scent of cedar and the weight of 1,000 eyes. Esther's just stepped into the inner court, her royal robe shimmering like a desert mirage. You're picturing her, heart hammering, facing Xerxes on his gold-crusted throne, his lion-like stare pinning her in place. The guard spears glint, ready to move if the king doesn't raise his scepter. You're holding your breath, sandals scuffing the marble, as Esther stands tall, her courage a quiet rebellion against Haman's death decree. She's risking it all for her people, and you're feeling the stakes like a knot in your chest. The throne room's a spectacle. Alabaster columns soar, tapestries of conquests ripple, and courtiers in peacock-bright tunics whisper behind their hands. Xerxes, probably half distracted by a goblet of wine, looks up, his crown catching the torchlight. You're imagining his surprise, a random contestant daring to crash his court. But Esther's not random. She's a spark in a powder keg, and you're betting her poise is disarming him. The scepter's the key, and you're praying he lifts it, because the alternative's too grim to dwell on. Here's the strange event in the Bible. Xerxes spares Esther. The book of Esther says he held out the golden scepter, granting her life and an audience. Your exhaling crisis averted. But how? It's like a lion deciding not to eat the antelope standing in its den. Esther approaches, touches the scepter's tip, and you're picturing the courtiers' jaws dropping, their gossip already spinning. She's not just alive. She's got the king's ear, and you're sensing she's about to play this moment like a master harpist, plucking strings no one saw coming. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian kings loved their scepters as status symbols. These weren't just sticks, they were gold, encrusted with gems, and waved around like a royal selfie stick. You're joking. Xerxes probably practiced his scepter lift in a mirror to look extra majestic. When he extends it to Esther, it's not just mercy, it's a flex of power, showing the court he's still the boss. You're imagining Esther's relief, her knees steady despite the urge to wobble, her mind racing to the next step, saving her people from Haman's edict. Disciples still argue whether Xerxes' mercy was attraction or divine intervention. Some say he was smitten by Esther's beauty, a sucker for a well-timed curtsy. Others think God softened his heart, nudging the scepter upward. You're leaning toward a mix. She's stunning, sure, but there's a bigger hand at play. Like a cosmic chess move, the text keeps it vague, letting you stew, like you're sipping a tea that's half sweet, half mystery. You're feeling Esther's pulse slow, her fear giving way to strategy. Esther doesn't blurt out Haman's plot, not yet. You're picturing her, voice soft but clear, inviting Xerxes to a banquet. Just her, him, and Haman, You're chuckling she's throwing a dinner party to dismantle a genocide that's next-level nerve. The king agrees, probably intrigued by her boldness. And you're betting he's thinking, this girl's got style. She's buying time, weaving a trap, and you're admiring her finesse, like she's threading a needle in a sandstorm. The courtiers are buzzing, and you're catching their whispers. Who is this nobody? Outside, Mordecai's at the king's gate, probably faint with worry. You're imagining him, his prayers a lifeline, unaware Esther's just dodged death. Susa's Jews are still fasting, their hope pinned on her, and you're feeling their desperation. Like a distant drumbeat, Haman's out there, gloating over his edict, clueless that Esther's setting a table to undo him. You're joking he'd spit out his wine if he knew she's Jewish, let alone this close to the king's heart. You're lingering by a throne room pillar, its lotus carvings cool under your fingers. The scepter's up, Esther's alive, and the banquet's set. The palace feels like a chessboard, and she's just moved her queen. You're thinking, girl, you're playing with fire, but it's beautiful. Let's keep moving toward the banquet hall, where Esther's about to spin a web that'll tangle Haman's ambitions and save her people. You're gliding through Susa's palace, the torch-lit halls humming with the aftershock of Esther's bold move. She's just walked out of the throne room, scepter approved, her heart probably still pounding from staring down Xerxes. You're brushing past a guard polishing his spear, catching the faint clink of goblets from a distant room. Esther's invited the king and Haman to a private banquet, a masterstroke disguised as hospitality. And you're sensing the trap she's setting, delicate as a spider's web. The women's quarters are behind her now. She's a player in the court's deadly game, her Jewish secret still hidden, her people's fate hanging on her next steps. The palace is abuzz. Courtiers whisper about the mystery girl who charmed Xerxes without losing her head. You're picturing Esther slipping back to her rooms, her maids fussing over her robes, unaware she's plotting to outwit a genocide. She's not queen yet, but she's got the king's attention, and you're betting she's replaying every word, every glance, to make sure her banquet plan holds. Haman's edict death to all Jews looms like a vulture, and you're feeling the clock tick, each second a step closer to the 13th of Adar. Here's the strange event in the Bible: Haman's twisted gallows plan. The book of Esther says he's so obsessed with Mordecai's refusal to bow that he builds a 50-cubit gallows about 75 feet high to hang him. You're blinking a skyscraper of spite just for one guy. It's like renting a coliseum to squash a bug. You're picturing Haman, all smug mustache and glittering rings, supervising carpenters in his courtyard, his ego bloated as a bad batch of dough. He's planning to pitch Mordecai's execution to Xerxes, clueless that Esther's banquet is about to derail his vendetta. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian gallows weren't always for hanging. They could mean impalement, a gruesome public spectacle. You're joking. Haman probably picked the tallest pole to make sure every camel in Susa got the memo. Don't mess with me. His hatred's personal, but it's spiraling, tying his fate to the Jews he's targeting. You're imagining his wife, Zeresh, egging him on, like a cheerleader for bad decisions. While their servants haul timber, it's a dark comedy, and you're wincing at the irony brewing. Disciples still argue whether Haman's gallows obsession was pride or paranoia. Some say he was flexing power, desperate to erase Mordecai's defiance. Others think he sensed a threat, like a wolf sniffing a trap. You're leaning toward pride. He's too arrogant to see the bigger picture, like a guy who trips over his own robe. The text doesn't psychoanalyze him, leaving you to parse his motives, like you're decoding a cryptic scroll. You're feeling the tension. Haman's rage clashing with Esther's quiet strategy. Back in the palace, Esther's prepping for the banquet, probably picking a menu that'll keep Xerxes happy. Think roasted lamb, honeyed figs, and enough wine to loosen tongues. You're chuckling, imagining her muttering, "Hope Haman chokes on a grape." She's got to play hostess while dropping hints about his plot, all without tipping her hand. Her maids are clueless, fussing over table linens, and you're betting she's praying harder than she did during the fast. Mordecai's at the gate, unaware of Haman's gallows but sensing the storm, his faith a steady pulse. Outside, Susa's Jews are reeling. Their fast over, but their fear alive. You're catching the distant wail of their prayers, like a low hum under the city's noise. Haman strutting, his gallows rising, and you're joking he's the only guy in Persia who'd build a monument to his own pettiness. Esther's banquet is hours away, and you're picturing her smoothing her nerves like she's ironing silk, her courage a hidden blade. The palace feels like a chessboard, and she's positioning her pieces, ready to check Haman's king. You're lingering by a bronze brazier, its flames casting shadows that dance like ghosts. The banquet hall's being set, and Esther's plan is taking shape. Delicate but deadly, you're thinking. Girl, you're juggling fire, but it's a sight to see. Let's keep moving toward the banquet's candlelit glow, where Esther's about to face Haman and Xerxes in a high-stakes dinner that'll shift the empire's fate. You're gliding through Susa's palace, the air alive with the clink of silver and the murmur of anticipation. Esther's first banquet is hours away, and you're weaving toward the dining hall, where servants are arranging cushions and polishing goblets. The torchlight dances on mosaics of winged bulls, and you're picturing Esther, her nerves taut as a lute string, preparing to host Xerxes and Haman. She's not queen yet, but she's playing a dangerous game. Her Jewish secret, a hidden spark ready to ignite Haman's downfall. You're brushing past a tray of pomegranates, feeling the weight of her plan outsmart a genocidal plot over dinner. No big deal. Haman's out there, puffed up like a peacock. His 75-foot gallows for Mordecai, nearly finished. You're imagining him strutting through Susa, his robe sweeping the dust, plotting to pitch Mordecai's execution to Xerxes. He's clueless about Esther's banquet trap, and you're smirking at the irony he's walking into a web spun by the very people he's targeting. Meanwhile, Mordecai's at the king's gate, his prayers a quiet drumbeat, unaware of Haman's latest spite project, but sensing Esther's moment is near. You're feeling the threads of this story tightening, like a knot about to snap. Here's the strange event in the Bible, Xerxes' sleepless night. The book of Esther says that before the banquet. The king can't sleep, so he orders his chronicles read aloud. You're blinking insomnia, leading to a history lesson. It's like scrolling through old texts at 2 a.m. The reader stumbles on Mordecai's forgotten act of loyalty, foiling that eunuch assassination plot years back. And Xerxes realizes he never rewarded him. You're picturing the king, propped on silk pillows, his crown askew, muttering, "Wait, who's this Mordecai guy?" It's a random twist, and you're sensing a divine nudge in the timing. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian kings kept obsessive records, like ancient bureaucrats with a fetish for papyrus. Chronicles detailed everything from battles to banquet menus, and you're joking Xerxes probably dozed through half of them. But this night, the reader's droning voice hits a nerve, and the king's wide awake, itching to honor Mordecai. You're imagining the poor scribe, bleary-eyed, reading by lamplight, unaware he's setting off a chain reaction that'll flip Haman's script. It's a cosmic comedy. And you're chuckling at the setup. Disciples still argue whether Xerxes' insomnia was chance or God's hand. Some say it was just bad lamb at dinner. Others think it was divine choreography, putting Mordecai's name in the king's ear at the perfect moment. You're leaning toward the latter. It's too neat, like a playwright timing a plot twist. The text doesn't spell it out, leaving you to ponder, like you're sipping wine with a hidden aftertaste. You're feeling the story's pulse quicken. Esther's banquet and Xerxes' restless night converging like rivers. Back in the palace, Esther's finalizing banquet details think spiced quail, honeyed wine, and a table set to charm. You're picturing her, smoothing her robe, practicing her words to expose Haman without spooking Xerxes. You're chuckling, imagining her muttering, "Don't choke, Esther, just serve the lamb and save your people." Her maids are bustling, unaware of the stakes. You're betting she's praying, her fast's strength still fueling her. The women's quarters feel distant now. She's a strategist, not a contestant. Her courage a quiet flame. Outside, Susa's Jews are in limbo. Their fasting done, but their fear alive. You're catching the faint echo of their prayers, like a breeze through the city's alleys. Haman's gallows looms, a grotesque monument to his ego. And you're joking he'd probably autograph it if he could. Mordecai's at the gate, his hope pinned on Esther, unaware the king's sleepless night is about to shift the game. The banquet hall's ready, its candles casting a warm glow. And you're sensing Esther's plan is a spark about to catch. You're lingering by a cedarwood screen, its carvings of vines cool under your fingers. The palace feels like a chessboard, with Esther moving her queen and Xerxes' insomnia shifting the board. You're thinking, girl, you're weaving a masterpiece, but Haman's not down yet. Let's keep moving toward the banquet's candlelit heart, where Esther's about to face the king and his venomous right-hand man in a meal that'll rewrite history. You're stepping into the banquet hall of Susa's palace, where the air's rich with the scent of roasted quail and flickering candlelight. Esther's first feast is about to begin, and you're weaving through servants arranging silver platters of figs and almonds. The table's set for 3: Esther, Xerxes, and Haman, and you're picturing her, regal in a sapphire robe, her smile a mask over nerves of iron. She's orchestrating this dinner to unravel Haman's genocidal plot, her Jewish secret still hidden like a dagger in her sleeve. You're brushing past a harpist plucking soft notes, feeling the tension coil like a bowstring drawn tight. Xerxes sweeps in, his crown glinting, his mood buoyant from Esther's scepter-winning charm. Haman follows, all smug swagger, his rings flashing as he takes his seat. You're smirking he's got no clue he's dining with the enemy. His gallows for Mordecai standing tall outside. Esther's playing hostess, pouring wine with a steady hand. But you're betting her heart's racing, knowing one wrong word could doom her people. The palace hums with its usual excess, but this room's a battlefield, and you're sensing Esther's about to make her move. Here's the strange event. In the Bible, Xerxes' sudden urge to honor Mordecai. The book of Esther says that before the banquet, the king, fresh off his sleepless night, asks Haman how to reward a man the king delights to honor. You're chuckling, Haman, thinking it's about him, suggests a royal parade robe, horse, the works. Xerxes agrees, then drops the bomb. Do it for Mordecai, the Jew at the gate. You're picturing Haman's face, sour as spoiled yogurt, forced to parade his nemesis through Susa. It's divine comedy, and you're loving the twist. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian parades were over the top, like a festival on steroids. The honoree got the king's robe, a horse with a royal crest, and a herald shouting their praises. You're joking. Haman probably gritted his teeth so hard he needed a Persian dentist, leading Mordecai through Susa, proclaiming, "This is the king's VIP," is the ultimate humiliation for a guy who built a 75-foot gallows for him. You're imagining Mordecai, stunned but dignified, riding high while Haman sulks, his ego deflated like a bad batch of bread. Disciples still argue whether Xerxes' decision was whimsy or providence. Some say he was just clearing his to-do list. Others think God flipped the script, using the king's insomnia to exalt Mordecai. You're leaning toward providence. It's too perfect, like a playwright sneaking in a plot twist. The text doesn't confirm, leaving you to savor the irony. like a sip of wine with a hidden kick. You're feeling Haman's world tilt, his gallows now a mocking shadow as Mordecai's honored back at the banquet. Esther's unaware of the parade drama. She's focused on Xerxes, steering the conversation like a charioteer. You're picturing her, offering him a honeyed fig, her voice soft but deliberate, hinting at a request she'll reveal at a second banquet tomorrow. You're chuckling, she's stringing them along like a storyteller, buying time to expose Haman. Xerxes, charmed, agrees to another feast, and Haman's too smug to suspect a trap. You're betting she's praying, her fast strength fueling her, her maids back in the quarters none the wiser. Outside, Mordecai's parade is winding down, Susa's streets buzzing with gossip. You're imagining him, back at the gate, his cloak still smelling of royal horse, his faith bolstered. The Jews are still in sackcloth, unaware of this small victory, their hope pinned on Esther's unseen battle. Haman slinks home, whining to his wife, Zeresh, who's probably rolling her eyes. You're joking he'd trade his rings for a do-over on this day. The gallows looms, a grim reminder of his overreach, and you're sensing the tide turning. You're lingering by a banquet table, its candles dripping wax like slow tears. The feast is wrapping up, but Esther's web is tightening, Haman's arrogance her perfect bait. You're thinking, girl, you're a genius, but don't slip. Let's keep moving toward the second banquet shadow, where Esther's about to drop a truth that'll shake the empire to its core. You're gliding back into Susa's palace, the banquet hall's glow fading as servants clear away goblets and olive pits. Esther's first feast worked like a charm. Xerxes and Haman are hooked, agreeing to a second dinner tomorrow. You're weaving through a corridor, its walls flickering with torchlight, catching the scent of lingering saffron. Esther's playing a long game, her Jewish secret still tucked away, her courage a quiet flame ready to torch Haman's genocidal plot. You're brushing past a curtain of crimson silk, picturing her back in her rooms, her mind racing as she plans her next move. The stakes are sky high, her people's lives hang on this second banquet, and you're feeling the tension, like a lute string about to snap. Haman's reeling from his worst day ever, forced to parade Mordecai through Susa in royal splendor. You're smirking, imagining him trudging home, his gaudy robe dusty, muttering curses while his 75-foot gallows mocks him from his courtyard. He's whining to his wife, Zeresh, and his cronies, but they're not much help. Zeresh even hints his luck's turning sour. You're sensing his world cracking, his ego a balloon pricked by Mordecai's triumph. Meanwhile, Esther's setting her trap, and you're betting she's praying harder than a scribe during a tax audit. Here's the strange event in the Bible, Esther's bombshell at the second banquet. The book of Esther says she hosts Xerxes and Haman again. And this time, she drops the truth she's Jewish, and Haman's edict targets her people for slaughter. You're gasping. It's like flipping the table mid-meal. exposing the king's right-hand man as a traitor. She pleads for her life and her nation, pointing the finger at Haman, who's probably choking on his wine. You're picturing the scene, Xerxes' face darkening, Esther's voice steady, Haman's smug grin melting into panic. It's a mic drop moment, and you're here for it. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian banquets were diplomatic chess games. Guests were seated by rank, and the host's every gesture carried weight. Esther's choice to invite only Haman and Xerxes screams strategy. You're joking she probably picked the menu to keep Haman's mouth full. Less chance for him to talk his way out. Her reveal isn't just bold, it's timed to maximize shock, catching Haman off guard while Xerxes is tipsy and charmed. You're imagining her serving spiced lamb while dropping truth bombs. Her poise, a masterclass in palace warfare. Disciples still argue whether Esther's timing was instinct or divine guidance. Some say she read the room, sensing Xerxes' mood. Others think God orchestrated the moment, aligning Mordecai's parade with her plea. You're leaning toward a mix. She's sharp, but the stars are aligning too neatly for chance. The text keeps it cryptic, like a riddle wrapped in silk. And you're savoring the drama, like you're tasting a wine with a hidden bite. You're feeling Esther's heartbeat, her fear and faith colliding as she names Haman as the enemy. You're picturing the banquet hall, its candles casting long shadows. Esther's words hang in the air, and Haman's face is a mask of dread. Xerxes, stunned, storms out to the garden, probably to cool his temper or process the betrayal. You're chuckling, imagining Haman begging Esther for mercy, tripping over his own ego like a bad actor. She's not budging, her people's survival is on the line, and you're betting she's channeling every ounce of her fast strength. Outside, Mordecai's at the gate, unaware of the showdown, his prayers a quiet anchor. Susa's Jews are still in the dark, their sackcloth prayers a distant hum. You're catching their grief, like a low note under the palace's glitter. Haman's gallows stands ready, a grim irony built for Mordecai. It's about to claim a different victim. You're joking he'd trade his whole treasury for a time machine right now. Esther's second banquet is a turning point, and you're sensing the empire shifting, like sand under a rising tide. The hall's tension is electric, and you're itching to see Xerxes' next move. You're lingering by a marble frieze of archers, its cool stone grounding you. The banquet's climax is unfolding, and Esther's courage is rewriting the script. You're thinking, girl, you're a legend, but don't let Haman squirm free. Let's keep moving deeper into this candlelit drama, where Esther's truth has lit a fuse, and Haman's fate is about to explode. You're still in the banquet hall of Susa's palace, the air thick with the aftermath of Esther's bombshell. The candles flicker, casting jagged shadows as Xerxes storms back from the garden, his face a thundercloud. Esther's just revealed her Jewish identity and Haman's plot to slaughter her people, and you're picturing her, steady as a cedar, her sapphire robe catching the light. Haman's a wreck, his smugness shattered, probably wishing he'd skipped the wine. You're brushing past a silver platter of half-eaten figs, feeling the room's tension crackle like a desert storm. Esther's flipped the script, and you're sensing Haman's empire of hate crumbling under her quiet courage. Xerxes is livid, his crown tilting as he glares at Haman, who's babbling excuses like a kid caught stealing dates. You're imagining the king's rage betrayed by his right-hand man. Embarrassed, in front of his favorite hostess, Esther's plea for her people's lives hangs in the air, and you're betting she's praying, her fast strength a hidden shield. The courtiers outside the hall are clueless, gossiping about the king's mood. But you're in the eye of the storm, where a genocide's fate is being decided over a half-finished banquet. Here's the strange event in the Bible, Haman's downfall, sealed by his own gallows. The book of Esther says Xerxes, tipped off by a servant about the 75-foot gallows Haman built for Mordecai, orders him hanged on it. Your blinking poetic justice doesn't get sharper than this. It's like Haman built his own trap and tripped into it. You're picturing the scene, guards dragging him out, his rings glinting one last time. As he's hoisted on the very pole he meant for Mordecai, the text says it's done at once, and you're feeling the swiftness, like a lightning strike on a clear day. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian executions were public spectacles, meant to scare the socks off anyone thinking of rebellion. You're joking Haman's gallows, towering over Susa, was probably the talk of the town until it became his final stage. The crowd likely jeered, and you're imagining his wife, Zeresh, watching from a distance, regretting her build-it-taller advice. It's a dark twist, but you're smirking at the irony Haman's ego, once puffed up like bad dough, now dangles as a warning to every court schemer. Disciples still argue whether Xerxes' snap decision was justice or impulse. Some say he was genuinely horrified by Haman's plot. Others think he just wanted to save face. Tossing Haman under the chariot to keep Esther happy. You're leaning toward a mix. Xerxes isn't deep, but betrayal stings, and Esther's plea hit hard. The text doesn't dissect his motives, leaving you to chew on it, like a spice you can't name. You're feeling the story's rhythm shift. Haman's fall a drumbeat signaling hope for Esther's people. Back in the hall, Esther's catching her breath, her gamble paying off. You're picturing her, maybe sipping water to steady her hands. As Xerxes processes the chaos, she's not gloating. Her focus is her people, still under the edict's shadow. You're chuckling, imagining her thinking, one down, now fix the law. Buddy, outside, Mordecai's at the gate, unaware Haman's gone, but sensing a shift. His prayers a steady pulse. Susa's Jews are still mourning. They're sackcloth heavy, and you're catching their distant grief like a low hum under the palace's glitter. The gallows shadow looms, but it's Haman's now, not Mordecai's. You're joking he'd have preferred a quiet exile to this public flop. Esther's second banquet has rewritten the game, but the edict's still active. Her work's not done. You're betting she's already planning her next move. Her mind sharp as a scribe's stylus. The palace feels like a chessboard. Haman's king toppled, but the board's still in play. You're sensing the tide turning. Esther's courage a wave about to crash. You're lingering by a bronze lamp. Its flame steady despite the chaos. The banquet hall's emptying. Servants whispering about Haman's fate. Esther's victory is sweet, but the real fight saving her people is just heating up. You're thinking, girl, you're a force. But don't rest yet. Let's keep moving toward the king's chambers, where Esther's about to push for a new edict to undo Haman's curse. You're drifting through Susa's palace. The banquet hall's chaos, now a fading echo. The air carries the faint tang of spilled wine and the buzz of courtiers whispering about Haman's spectacular crash. Esther's second feast turned the tables her Jewish identity revealed. Haman exposed and hanged on his own gallows. You're weaving past a servant sweeping up olive pits, picturing Esther in her chambers, her sapphire robe discarded, her mind already racing to the next hurdle. Haman's gone, but his edict death to all Jews on the 13th of Adar still stands, a poison seeping through the empire. You're feeling her resolve, like a flame that's burned through fear and found steel. Xerxes is probably nursing a headache, sprawled on his lion-carved throne, reeling from the betrayal of his ex-right-hand man. You're imagining him muttering, "First Vashti, now Haman. Can't I pick one decent advisor?" Esther's got his ear, but reversing a Persian edict is trickier than dodging that crocodile dung sunscreen we joked about way back. You're brushing against a tapestry of a stag hunt, its threads glinting, sensing the palace's pulse part shock, part anticipation as Esther prepares to push for her people's survival. Here's the strange event in the Bible: Esther's bold request for a counter-edict. The book of Esther says she falls at Xerxes' feet, weeping, begging him to revoke Haman's decree. You're picturing her, tears real but calculated, her voice a mix of grief and grit as she pleads for her nation. Persian law says royal edicts can't be undone. Talk about bureaucratic nonsense, but Xerxes, moved, lets her and Mordecai draft a new one. You're blinking, she's basically rewriting empire policy, like a teenager fixing a king's bad homework. It's a power move, and you're here for it. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian bureaucracy was a beast. Edicts were sealed with the king's ring, carved in stone, and sent by couriers who'd ride 700 miles faster than you'd sprint for fresh baklava. You're joking Esther probably wished for a delete button on Haman's scroll. The new edict allows Jews to arm and defend themselves on the 13th of Adar, turning victims into warriors. You're imagining couriers galloping out, scrolls flying, as Susa's Jews get word they can fight back. It's a game changer, and you're cheering Esther's hustle. Disciples still argue whether Xerxes' flexibility was love for Esther or damage control. Some say he was smitten, bending rules for her tears. Others think he was saving face, avoiding a PR disaster after Haman's flop. You're leaning toward a mix. He's charmed but practical, like a guy who'd rather rewrite a law than admit he goofed. The text doesn't spell out his heart, leaving you to sip the ambiguity like a spiced tea. You're feeling Esther's relief, her tears drying as she and Mordecai seize the pen. You're picturing Esther and Mordecai in a palace scriptorium, quills scratching, crafting the edict. Mordecai's probably barking orders, his scribe skills in overdrive, while Esther suggests tweaks, her voice soft but firm. You're chuckling, imagining her muttering, "Let's make it clear, no genocide." Okay, outside, Susa's Jews are still in sackcloth, unaware of the lifeline coming. You're catching their distant prayers, a faint hum under the city's noise. The king's ring seals the deal, and you're betting the couriers are saddling up, ready to spread hope faster than gossip. Haman's gallows stands empty, a grim monument to his failure. You're joking it's the only thing in Susa taller than his ego was. Mordecai's at the palace now, summoned to help Esther, his gate-sitting days swapped for royal clout. The Jews' fate isn't sealed, yet the 13th of Adar looms, and they'll have to fight. But Esther's given them a sword. You're sensing the empire shifting, her courage, a tide lifting her people. The palace feels like a forge, and she's hammering out a new future. You're lingering by a bronze lamp, its flame a steady glow. The scriptorium's alive with purpose. Esther and Mordecai rewriting history. You're thinking, girl, you're a queen in every way, but the crown? Let's keep moving toward the streets of Susa, where the new edict's about to land, and the Jews are about to trade despair for defiance. You're stepping out of Susa's palace. The cool night air, a sharp contrast to the torchlit halls. The scriptorium's frenzy, Esther and Mordecai crafting the counter-edict, is behind you. And you're weaving through Susa's streets, where the city hums with late-night traders and stray dogs. The new edict, sealed with Xerxes' ring, is racing across the empire, carried by couriers who'd outrun a sandstorm. It grants Jews the right to defend themselves on the 13th of Adar, flipping Haman's death decree into a fighting chance. You're brushing past a baker stacking loaves, picturing Esther, her work done for now, her courage a spark that's about to ignite her people. You're feeling the hope rising, like dawn after a brutal night. Susa's Jewish quarter is stirring. You're imagining families, still in sackcloth, hearing hoofbeats as a courier arrives. scroll in hand. The news spreads Haman's gone. Esther's Jewish, and they can arm themselves. You're picturing their faces shock, then joy, like rain on parched earth. Mordecai's no longer just the gate sitter. He's a hero, named in the edict alongside Esther. You're betting he's out there, rallying the community. His cloak still dusty, but his eyes alight. The 13th of Adar is months away, but you're sensing a shift, from despair to defiance. Here's the strange event in the Bible: the birth of Purim. The book of Esther says the Jews, delivered from Haman's plot, celebrate with feasting, gifts to the poor, and joy, establishing Purim as an annual festival. You're blinking a holiday born from a near genocide, named for the lots per Haman cast. It's like throwing a party to mock your enemy's bad dice roll. You're picturing Susa's streets, soon filled with laughter, costumes, and wine. As Jews retell Esther's story, it's not just survival, it's a middle finger to hate. And you're loving the vibe. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Purim's traditions are wild, think masquerades, boozy feasts, and kids booing Haman's name during synagogue readings. You're joking it's like Halloween, Passover, and a roast of your worst boss rolled into one. In Esther's time, the first Purim was raw, a spontaneous eruption of relief. You're imagining neighbors sharing honeyed cakes, their kids reenacting Mordecai's parade, maybe with a donkey instead of a royal horse. It's messy, human, and you're feeling the warmth, like a hearth after a storm. Disciples still argue whether Purim's joy was spontaneous or strategic. Some say it was pure relief, a collective exhale. Others think Esther and Mordecai shaped it to unify the Jews, cementing their identity in exile. You're leaning toward both raw emotion fueled it, but their leadership gave it form. Like sculpting clay from a flood, the text doesn't over-explain, leaving you to savor the triumph, like a sip of wine that lingers. You're feeling the Jews' resilience, turning trauma into a legacy of laughter. Back in the palace, Esther's catching her breath, maybe sipping mint tea in her chambers. You're picturing her, exhausted but unbowed, her maids fussing while she processes the day Haman's fall. The edict, the king's trust. You're chuckling, imagining her muttering. Next time, Mordecai, you host the banquet. Xerxes is probably off polishing his scepter, pleased with his merciful edict, oblivious to the deeper currents. Mordecai's in the palace now, his scribe skills in demand. And you're betting he's already drafting laws to protect their people. Outside, Susa's Jews are planning training, arming, praying. You're catching their voices, a mix of psalms and strategy, as they prepare for the 13th of Adar, Haman's gallows. Now, his own grave marker looms over the city, a grim reminder of what they've escaped. You're joking. It's the only thing in Susa that didn't get a Purim party invite. The empire's vast, And the edicts still spreading Jews in Babylon. Media. Ethiopia are getting the news. Their hope kindling. You're sensing a nation reborn. Esther's courage, its heartbeat. You're lingering by a city fountain. Its splash mingling with distant laughter. The Jewish quarters alive. The first sparks of Purim flickering. Esther's not done. She's still navigating Xerxes' court. But this moment's hers. You're thinking, girl, you've built a legacy, and it's just getting started. Let's keep moving. Towards Susa's heart, where joy is rising and the Jews are ready to fight. Feast and remember. You're wandering through Susa's palace. Its marble halls quieter now. The frenzy of Esther's banquet and Haman's fall settling like dust after a storm. The counter-edict is out, galloping across the empire to arm Jews against the 13th of Adar. And you're picturing Esther in her chambers, maybe staring at a flickering lamp, her mind heavy with what's been won and what's still at stake. You're brushing past a guard yawning by a lotus-carved pillar, catching the faint scent of myrrh that's starting to feel like an old friend. Esther's courage has toppled Haman and sparked Purim's joy. But she's not just a hero, she's a queen in all but name. Steering her people through a Persian maze, you're feeling her quiet strength. Like a river carving stone, the cities beyond hums with new energy. You're imagining Susa's Jewish quarter, where sackcloth is giving way to plans men sharpening swords. Women baking for the first Purim. Kids giggling over Mordecai's parade story. The counter edicts a lifeline, but the fight's coming. You're sensing their resolve, a mix of faith and grit. Esther's at the heart of this. Her plea to Xerxes, not just saving lives, but reshaping a nation's spirit. You're betting she's still praying. Her fasts echoes fueling her as she navigates the palace's glittering snake pit. Here's the strange event in the Bible, Esther's understated reign. The book of Esther says she remains in Xerxes' court, wielding influence without a formal crown. Her role subtle, but seismic. You're blinking she's not parading her power like Vashti or scheming like Haman. Yet she's shifting history with whispers and banquets. It's like she's conducting an orchestra with a nod. Her Jewish identity now open, but her moves still veiled. You're picturing her at a royal council. Her voice soft but firm, nudging Xerxes to back the Jews' defense. Her presence a quiet rebuke to Haman's hate. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian queens could be powerhouses, managing estates and advising kings. But they rarely got the spotlight. You're joking Esther's like the ultimate stage manager, running the show while Xerxes takes the bows. Her influence is practical. She's ensuring the counter edicts enforced. Couriers deliver, and Jews are ready. You're imagining her signing scrolls with Mordecai, maybe sneaking a fig from a tray. Her humor, a flicker in the grind. It's not glamorous, but it's real. And you're admiring her knack for making power look like poise. Disciples still argue whether Esther's quiet role was humility or strategy. Some say she stayed low-key to avoid Vashti's fate. Others think she was playing the long game, embedding Jewish safety in the empire's fabric. You're leaning towards strategy. She's too sharp to just fade into the silk curtains. The text doesn't boast about her, leaving you to trace her impact. Like footprints in desert sand, you're feeling her legacy, not in statues, but in the Jews' survival. Their laughter rising as Purim takes root. You're picturing Esther at a palace window, Susa's rooftops glowing under the stars. She's not resting, her people's fight is months away. And Xerxes' court is a minefield of egos. You're chuckling, imagining her muttering, "Mordecai, you owe me a nap for this." Mordecai's now a palace insider. His gate days swapped for royal robes, helping Esther secure their victory. Outside, the Jewish quarter's alive, families share bread. Men train, and kids dream of Purim's masks. You're catching their hope, like a melody weaving through the city's noise. Haman's gallows, now a grim landmark, stands empty, a warning to haters everywhere. You're joking. It's the only thing in Susa not invited to the Purim party. The empire's vast, and the counter-edicts still spreading Jews in distant provinces are arming, their prayers mingling with plans. Esther's influence is a ripple, touching Babylon, media, beyond. You're sensing a nation knitting itself together. Her courage, the thread. The palace feels like a loom, and she's weaving a future where her people can breathe. You're lingering by a bronze brazier, its flames casting soft light. Esther's quiet reign is a paradox power without pomp, faith without fanfare. You're thinking, girl, you're rewriting what a queen can be. Let's keep moving towards Susa's streets, where Purim's spark is growing, and Esther's legacy is taking root in every Jewish heart. You're slipping back into Susa's palace. Its halls hushed as the night deepens. The flicker of oil lamps casting shadows on alabaster walls. Esther's work hums beneath the surface, her counter-edict arming Jews for the 13th of Adar, her quiet influence steadying a nation. You're weaving past a sleepy guard, his spear drooping, picturing Esther in her chambers, maybe tracing a scroll with her finger, her mind on her people's future. Haman's gone, his gallows a grim memory, but the fight looms, and you're feeling her weight. Saving a nation is no small gig, even for a queen in waiting. You're brushing against a tapestry of winged lions, sensing her legacy taking shape, like clay under a potter's hands. Outside, Susa's Jewish quarter is alive. The first glimmers of Purim weaving through their preparations. You're imagining families sharpening blades, baking sesame cakes, and whispering Esther's name like a prayer. Mordecai's no longer just their gate-sitting scribe. He's a leader, striding through the palace in royal robes. His partnership with Esther, a lifeline for their people. You're betting he's out there, rallying the community, his psalms mingling with battle plans. The counter edict's a shield, but the 13th of Adar will test their courage, and you're sensing their resolve, like a fire kindled in a storm. Here's the strange event in the Bible: Mordecai's rise to power. The book of Esther says Xerxes promotes him to Haman's old job, making him second in command. A Jewish exile now running the Persian show. You're blinking a gate sitter to prime minister. It's like a barista becoming emperor overnight. You're picturing Mordecai, his dusty cloak swapped for silk, signing edicts with the king's ring, his calm voice steering the empire toward justice. He's not gloating, but you're betting he's savoring the irony Haman's office, now his. A divine plot twist. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian viziers were like rock stars, with entourages, estates, and enough bling to make a peacock jealous. You're joking Mordecai probably tripped over his new robes the first day, muttering, "I just wanted to keep Esther safe." His rise isn't just personal, it's practical, ensuring the counter edicts enforced and Jews are protected. You're imagining him at a council table, outsmarting nobles who still grumble about that Jew. His scribes brain a sharper weapon than their swords. It's a quiet coup, and you're cheering his glow up. Disciples still argue whether Mordecai's promotion was merit or Esther's pull. Some say Xerxes saw his loyalty, recalling the assassination plot he foiled. Others think Esther nudged the king, securing her cousin's clout to safeguard their people. You're leaning toward a mix. Mordecai's proven himself, but Esther's banquet finesse opened the door. The text doesn't spill the tea, leaving you to savor the ambiguity, like a story with a half-told ending. You're feeling Mordecai's weight, power a burden as much as a gift, his faith guiding every move. Back in the palace, Esther's navigating her new normal, openly Jewish, quietly powerful, still charming Xerxes without stepping on court toes. You're picturing her, maybe sharing a quiet moment with Mordecai, their laughter a rare break from the grind. You're chuckling, imagining her teasing, nice robes. But don't forget the gate's dust, the Jewish quarters gearing up, their training and feasting a defiant hymn. You're catching their voices, a blend of hope and steel, as they prepare to face their enemies. Purim's spirit is growing, a celebration rooted in survival. The empire's vast, and the counter edicts' ripples are reaching distant provinces, Jews in Babylon, Kush, India, all arming for the fight. You're sensing a network of resilience. Esther and Mordecai, its beating heart. Haman's gallows, now a city joke, stands as a warning hate loses. You're joking, it's the only thing in Susa not getting a Purim makeover. The palace feels like a hub. Esther and Mordecai weaving a future where Jews can thrive. Their story, a beacon for exiles everywhere. You're lingering by a courtyard fountain, its splash mingling with the city's hum. Mordecai's rise is a triumph, but the 13th of Adar looms, and Esther's watching, her courage a steady flame. You're thinking, girl, you've built a dynasty of hope, but the battle's coming. Let's keep moving towards Susa's streets, where Purim's joy and the Jews' defiance are rising, hand in hand. You're weaving through Susa's palace, its corridors soft with lamplight, the air carrying whispers of cedar and ambition. Esther and Mordecai are now a power duo, her quiet influence and his new vizier robes steering the empire toward justice. The counter edict is out, arming Jews for the 13th of Adar, and you're picturing Esther in a private chamber, maybe sipping mint tea, her eyes tracing Susa's skyline. Haman's gallows is a fading ghost. Purim's spark is kindling, but the fight's still coming. And you're feeling her vigilance, like a shepherd watching for wolves. You're brushing past a silk curtain, sensing her story's heart faith, subtle as a breeze, moving mountains. Susa's Jewish quarter pulses with life. You're imagining families forging weapons, sharing bread, and retelling Esther's banquet triumph, their kids giggling over Haman's flop. Mordecai's a hero now, his gate-sitting days a legend swapped for royal clout. You're betting he's out there, checking on training, his psalms a quiet backbone for their defiance. The counter edicts given them teeth, but the 13th of Adar will be a brawl, and you're sensing their faith, a fire that burns without roaring. Esther's courage is their shield, and you're marveling at how one woman's banquet flipped a nation's fate. Here's the strange event in the Bible, God's hidden hand. The book of Esther never mentions God outright. Yet every twist, Haman's fall, Xerxes' insomnia, Mordecai's rise feels orchestrated, like a symphony without a visible conductor. You're blinking a Bible story, dodging divine name drops. It's like a play where the star stays backstage. You're picturing Esther praying, her fast a silent nod to a God who works through scepters and scrolls. This absence makes the story sing, and you're feeling the divine wink, subtle but seismic, guiding her people to safety. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian Jews saw Purim as a second Passover, a deliverance story with wine and costumes instead of matzah. You're joking. They probably toasted Esther with enough gusto to make Xerxes jealous. This godless narrative was deliberate, some say, to show faith thriving in exile, where miracles hide in plain sight. You're imagining Susa's Jews, their first Purim, a raw burst of joy, swapping gifts like it's a divine high five. It's messy, human, and you're loving the vibe, like a party that laughs at death. Disciples still argue whether God's absence is stylistic or theological. Some say the writer avoided divine mentions to appeal to Persian readers, Others think it's a flex, showing God's power in the mundane, like Esther's banquet or Mordecai's gate gossip. You're leaning toward the flex. It's too neat, like a puzzle where every piece fits without being forced. The text invites you to see the divine in the details, like spotting a star in daylight. You're feeling the story's depth. Esther's faith, a thread weaving hope through exile. You're picturing Esther at a palace balcony, Susa's lights twinkling below. She's not resting. Court politics are a viper's nest, and she's guarding her people's future. You're chuckling, imagining her muttering, "Mordecai, next time you face the king." Mordecai's in the thick of it, his vizier role a grind, ensuring Jews across the empire get the edict's protection. Outside, the Jewish quarters alive, men spar, women weave, kids dream of Purim's masks. You're catching their resilience. A song rising over the city's hum. Their fight and feast a testament to Esther's nerve. The empire's vast, and the counter-edicts reaching Jews in far-off media. Kush, India. You're sensing a diaspora united. Their prayers and plans, a network of survival. Haman's gallows, now a city punchline, reminds everyone hate doesn't win. You're joking, it's the only thing in Susa not draped in Purim streamers. The palace feels like a lighthouse. Esther and Mordecai its keepers, guiding their people through a storm. You're marveling at their quiet power. Faith moving without fanfare. You're lingering by a courtyard palm, its fronds swaying in the breeze. Esther's story is a miracle disguised as strategy. God's hand, invisible but undeniable. You're thinking, girl, you've woven a tapestry of hope, and it's breathtaking. Let's keep moving towards Susa's heart, where Purim's joy and the Jews' defiance are blooming, rooted in a faith that needs no name. You're drifting through Susa's palace. Its halls now a soft glow of lamplight. The frenetic energy of Esther's triumph settling into a quieter rhythm. The counter-edict is spreading across the empire, arming Jews for the 13th of Adar. And you're picturing Esther in her chambers, maybe folding a scroll, her eyes on the horizon where her people's future lies. Haman's gallows is a grim city joke. Purim's joy is taking root. But the fight's still months away, and you're feeling her vigilance, like a watchman scanning the dark. You're brushing past a bronze brazier, its embers fading, sensing the palace winding down while Esther's legacy burns bright. Susa's Jewish quarter is a hive of hope and hustle. You're imagining families forging spears, baking honeyed cakes, and swapping stories of Esther's banquet. Their kids reenacting Mordecai's parade with makeshift crowns. Mordecai's a palace power now. His vizier robes a far cry from gate dust, and you're betting he's out there, checking on the community. His psalms a steady pulse, the counter-edicts giving them a fighting chance. But the 13th of Adar will be no picnic. And you're sensing their grit, a nation reborn through Esther's nerve. You're marveling at her reach, a Jewish orphan reshaping an empire from a banquet table. Here's the strange event in the Bible, the palace's fading role. The book of Esther shifts focus from Xerxes' glittering court to the Jews' survival, as if the throne room's pomp shrinks against their defiance. You're blinking, the story's heart isn't in gold columns or royal scepters, but in Susa's streets, where Jews prepare to fight and feast. It's like the palace, once a dazzling stage, becomes a backdrop to Esther's people, their resilience outshining Xerxes' crown. You're picturing the court, its intrigues now distant, as Esther and Mordecai turn their gaze to their nation's heartbeat. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Persian palaces were temporary hubs. Kings moved between capitals, like Persepolis and Babylon, leaving Susa quiet for months. You're joking. Esther probably wished Xerxes would take a vacation so she could focus on her people. This shift to the Jews' story mirrors that court drama fades, and their survival, their Purim joy, takes center stage. You're imagining Susa's Jews, their homes lit with oil lamps, planning defenses and swapping gifts. Their laughter, a quiet rebellion against Haman's shadow. It's raw, and you're feeling the warmth, like a hearth in a desert night. Disciples still argue whether the story's pivot is literary or theological. Some say it's a narrative trick, zooming out to show the Jews' triumph. Others think it's God's hand, redirecting glory from kings to a scattered people. You're leaning toward the latter. It's too poetic, like a song that shifts keys to lift the chorus. The text doesn't explain, leaving you to trace the shift, like footprints fading in sand. You're feeling the Jews' strength, their story eclipsing the palace's glitter. Esther's faith, the spark that lit it all. You're picturing Esther at a window, Susa's rooftops, a patchwork under the stars. She's not basking in victory court politics still simmer. And the 13th of Adar looms. You're chuckling, imagining her muttering, Mordecai. Can we skip to the feasting part? Mordecai's deep in palace work, ensuring the counter edicts enforced. His scribe's brain outpacing the nobles' schemes. Outside, the Jewish quarters alive, men train, women pray, kids dream of Purim's noise. You're catching their spirit, a defiant hum rising over the city's murmur. Their fight and joy, a testament to Esther's stand. The empire's vast, and the counter edicts reaching Jews in distant lands. Media, Ethiopia, India, uniting a diaspora in purpose. You're sensing a legacy. Esther and Mordecai, its architects. Their faith, a thread through exile. Haman's gallows, now a city punchline, stands as proof hate crumbles. You're joking. It's the only thing in Susa not wearing a Purim mask. The palace feels like a memory, its grandeur dimming as the Jews' story shines. Their resilience a light no edict can snuff. You're You're lingering by a courtyard gate. It's iron cool under your hand. Susa's fading into starlight. But Esther's work endures. Her courage a cornerstone for her people. You're thinking, girl, you've turned a court into a legend, and it's eternal. Let's keep moving toward the city's heart, where Purim's roots are deepening, and the Jews' defiance is a song for the ages. You're standing at the edge of Susa's palace, its marble walls glowing faintly under a star-strewn sky. The counter edict is out, arming Jews for the 13th of Adar, and Purim's joy is taking root, a defiant hymn against Haman's faded hate. You're weaving through a quiet courtyard, the air soft with jasmine and the distant hum of the city. Esther's work her banquets. Her courage has reshaped an empire, and you're picturing her now, maybe at a balcony, her silhouette framed against the night, her thoughts on her people's fight and feast. You're brushing past a palm frond, feeling her legacy, a quiet fire that's warmed a nation's heart. Susa's Jewish quarter is alive, its streets flickering with lamplight as families prepare for the coming battle and the first Purim. You're imagining them, men honing blades, women kneading dough for festival breads, kids whispering tales of Esther's scepter moment. Mordecai's a palace pillar now, his vizier robes a symbol of their triumph. And you're betting he's out there, sharing psalms and strategy, the counter edicts a shield. But the 13th of Adar will demand their blood and faith, and you're sensing their unity, a people forged in Esther's fire. You're marveling at her reach, a Jewish orphan who turned a king's whim into a nation's salvation. Here's the strange event in the Bible, the enduring silence of God's name. The book of Esther ends without mentioning God, yet his presence hums in every twist: Xerxes' insomnia, Haman's gallows, Esther's courage, like a melody you feel but don't hear. You're blinking a sacred story that trusts you to see the divine in the mundane. It's like a painting where the light's implied, not shown. You're picturing Esther, her prayers unspoken but fierce, her faith a compass through Susa's storms. This silence is the story's soul, and you're feeling its weight, a quiet trust that carries her people home. Let's drop a quirky tidbit. Purim's legacy includes mishloach manot, gift baskets of food swapped between friends, a nod to the Jews' shared relief. You're joking. They probably stuffed them with enough dates to sink a camel, celebrating survival with every bite. In Esther's time, this was raw neighbors sharing scraps, their laughter a middle finger to Haman's edict. You're imagining Susa's Jews, their homes warm with oil lamps, passing bread and wine, their joy a seed that'll bloom for centuries. It's human, messy, and you're loving the heart of it, like a hug after a long fight. Disciples still argue whether the godless text is a challenge or a gift. Some say it's a test, daring readers to find faith in chaos. Others think it's a love letter to exiles, showing God's work in their everyday grit. You're leaning toward the gift it's too artful, like a story whispered in starlight. The text leaves you to linger, like you're tracing a map with no names. You're feeling the Jews' triumph. Their Purim feasts a testament to Esther's faith, her courage a spark that lit a nation's hope. You're picturing Esther under Susa's stars, her breath slow, her work a quiet hum. The palace fades, its gold and scepters dim against her people's resilience. You're chuckling, imagining her whispering, "Mordecai, we did it, but I'm napping tomorrow." The Jewish quarter sings prayers, laughter, the clink of shared cups. The 13th of Adar waits, but for now, they're alive, defiant, free. You're catching their joy, a soft glow over Susa's rooftops. Their story, a beacon for every exile dreaming of home. The stars deepen. Susa's hum softens, and you're sinking into the night's embrace. Esther's courage, Mordecai's faith, their people's defiance, they weave a tapestry that warms you, lulls you. The palace is a memory, the fight a distant promise. You're resting under that starry sky. The Jews' laughter a gentle wave, carrying you to peace. Let the world fade. Let your breath slow and drift into dreams where hope rises, soft as dawn, eternal as the stars, whispering Esther's name.